Welcome back to Mr. Obsolete's Vintage Homesteading channel. Today we're at a tractor and engine show in Shelton, Washington. It's Pioneer Power of the Pacific Northwest. It's been a couple of years since they've had a show because of the COVID and other things. And it's a small show, but it's really a fun one. There's a nice selection of stuff here. Right here we've got some Gibson tractors. These were little tractors that were originally designed and built in Seattle for a short time, and then they moved to Colorado. And the company originally made rail cars and speeders and things like that too in Seattle, so they were unique in a lot of things. They had a hand steering, they have a lever here to steer them rather than a steering wheel. And over the years they built bigger ones, and actually at the very last built a full-size farm tractor. And so they were in business from 1946 to 1952. And anyway, if you look in the background, you can see there's a nice row of vintage tractors. And then we'll go over and we'll take a look at some of the engine displays here soon. Well, this is one of the more unusual tractors here. This is a Silver King. It was made by a company called Fate, Ruth, and Heath. And the main thing they did was industrial transmissions. They decided to get into the tractor business, so they used off-the-shelf parts. The engines, some of the smaller ones were Hercules and Continental, and the bigger ones had a 6-cylinder Chrysler industrial engine. And they weren't real successful, but they're really unusual. You can see the unusual steering mechanism and all the different things on it. Kind of like you've got a John Deere running in the background there. Anyway, we'll move on to another tractor here. Okay, well, here's a really unusual tractor. It's a Graham Bradley. It's a 1938. Use a Continental 6-cylinder engine. These were made by the Graham Car Company. And we made them for Sears. We made them until 1941, I believe. But you can see what this beautiful Art Deco styling. This is one of my favorite tractors. I need one. Oh, we'll move on to some more stuff. Okay, well, here's some of the other tractors. There's a little international utility model. These were made in the 50s and 60s. Move over to Farmall. And you can look down, there's more Farmalls. There's a massive Harris. Over on this side here, we've got some Fords, John Deere's, and a K-10 on the end. Got a nice little selection of tractors here. Well, let's go over and take some look at some engines. Okay, well, this engine here is what's called a Sparta economy, and these were sold by Sears. This is a real early engine, and Sears bought that engine, so they have a line of these engines. They started making them in 1909, and they made them until 1933. This has a little 2-cylinder water pump here. You can see the water coming out there. Got a nice early engine. Over here. Okay, this engine here is a 7-horsepower 60. These are pretty rare on the West Coast. They're more common on the East Coast. This came out of a huge collection that was here in Washington for many years. Anyway, I'll take some more engines in here in just a bit. Okay, this engine here is a marine engine. It's pretty early. Somebody set it up so it has a what they call a screen cooling here. The water trickles down that screen. The air blows through it to cool it. How you tell a real early engine like this is by the ignition. This is what they call a white spark. So it has an igniter with a point inside the cylinder, and this arm here comes and trips it to fire it. Before spark plugs were really common. Then we come over here, we get a little Maytag single running a grinding wheel setup. And we come over here. This engine is unusual in it's air-cooled. This one doesn't have it, but a lot of them had a little leather belt that ran over to a fan blade to push the air across the cool engine.
Alrighty! Okay, good.
That's a feed grinder. Grind corn and wheat and different things in it to make chicken feed and things like that.
I've never been to Brooks, and all I've ever heard is the hellhole is so hot.
It hasn't been that badly. Okay.
1.5 horsepower.
There was
85 is a cool day.
Another gauge here, air fuel. You can see the fan on it. This engine here is a great big old industrial engine. It's an Atlas Imperial. We're used a lot in tugboats and things like that. This one is set up for stationary service. It says Atlas Osiris in Oakland, California. That's kind of unusual for these Osiris names. Something you don't see on these very often. You can see all the valves here is out in the open. And one of them runs the injector of the fuel, and to reverse this engine, you actually flip a lever here, changes the camshaft, and then you start the engine backwards to get reversed. Anyway, another neat piece. Find some more here. This little engine here is a water pump. These were made in Seattle by the Pacific Fire Pump Company, and these were used for firefighting and pumping water out of streams. The thing that's interesting is the power head. They use outboard motor power heads. This one is a Johnson outboard power head, probably an LT37 or a 39. And they made them up for great big 4-cylinder ones. The idea was they were simple to start and run and lightweight and portable. They were used for years and years.
yeah.
So in the back, you can see we've got some John Deere hitting this engine. We'll be back to close in a sec. Well, here we have some John Deere hitting this engine. This is one of the bigger ones. And there again, you can see it post and then it'll fire and it posts and fires. The governor controls the speed, and so when it speeds up, it holds the exhaust valve down so this posts, and the speed drops off, and the valve will come up, drawing some air fuel mixture and fire again. Small one, of course, and a half.
Hold on just a second. Okay, ready?
15 piece. This is a Sears Economy engine, 7 horsepower. And this is a buzzsaw that we used on farms, cutting firewood and things. Got a pretty good sized blade on it, has a belt that runs it off on the other side. And on the very back here, you have a table that you can tilt back and forth, so you pull it back, set your wood on and push it in to cut it off, cut the wood off. And those are really a neat piece. And this is probably made about 1927, somewhere in there. And we'll come over here and look at another engine. This is an International Harvester Model M engine. This is an early one that has the magneto. It's actually an AC generator, and then it has an igniter, and of course the later ones used a spark plug. But they had a nice enclosed crankcase. These were really nice. A lot of these engines had open cranks like the Economy over here, and dirt and stuff would get in and wear the stuff out. And this is all enclosed. And how you would grease the connecting rod, since you have access to it, you fill this cup with grease, and when it's running you just grab a hold of it and then squeeze the grease in and grease the connecting rod bearing. So those are really a nice engine for the era. Well, when I was growing up, I had several uncles that had either construction equipment or farms, and they used Caterpillars. Even when I was very young, I used to drive Cat 22s, Cat 30, D6 and D7s and D8s. And so I have a lot of experience running these, but this one is a Cletrac, which is Cleveland Tractor Company. And that's what Mr. Obsolete collects. He really likes these. We'll do some videos on them down the road. But this one here to show, this is what's called a Model DD. And what the DD stands for, it's a Model D. A diesel. If it was a DG, it'd have a Hercules gas engine in it. But this was used in logging here in the Northwest. It's got a blade you can pivot back and forth. It's got a safety canopy built onto it here. Well, these crawler tractors that were used for logging had a winch on the back, and that for pulling logs up the hill to a loading area. And then when they get to a loading area, they would use these logging arcs. This is a homemade Jippo logger special. Had a cable came back through here, and they tied around the logs and lift them up, and nose off the ground, and then drag them up to where they were loaded.
I remember we drove through this one.
Looks like it has aircraft wheels on it. Pretty interesting piece. And we'll come over here and take a picture of this little cat. I'll talk about it briefly. This is a Caterpillar 22. The early Caterpillars were gas engines. And they made some massive gas engines, but the diesel engines proved to be much more powerful and more durable. But I had lots of experience running these. My uncle was a ditch master, and we used to spray trees with an orchard sprayer in the back. We have huge orchards, and we used to do all the towing of the trailers around when pickers would come out season to pick fruit. And so hand crank start only. And have a good hot magneto. Anyway, there you go.